Hello and welcome to this yoga for post-gardening backache. Please be sure to read the disclaimer, and when you're ready, meet me standing on the mat. Hi everybody and welcome. So I've been doing a lot of gardening and as a result have a very sore lower back. So we're going to stretch it out by bringing one leg forward, placing the weight on the back leg and lightly on the front heel, pulling back the toes. Now the hands are resting just above the knees on the thighs, and I'm using that purchase of the hands on the thighs to lengthen through the spine out the crown of the head and to pull the corset and tissue all around the belly in and up. Take some breaths here as you stretch. And bring the weight over the front leg to come up. Same thing, other side. Be really careful here not to lock that front knee, especially as you are using the resistance of the leg into the hand to create some space in the vertebrae. Breathe. And get ready to shift the weight forward, bringing the hips under the body to come back up. Okay, so we're going to come down to the floor and do a little treat for the feet. And reason being is that the connective tissue all meets in the feet, and working the feet can actually impact the back. So I begin here by grabbing hold of one foot and compressing it. So bringing all of the tissues and bones back together again. And then I'm going to just lightly pull each toe a little and then feed that joint back into the foot and make little circles with each little piggy. So a little pull, stretch, and then rejoining that toe back to the foot and making little circles. Doesn't matter which way you go with the circles. Now I'm going to take the toes and I'm going to kind of spread through the underside of the toes where they're indented, just smoothing that out. And then I'm going to start to stroke down the center of the foot with the thumbs. This can be alternating one thumb to the next, or it can be using both thumbs with equal pressure in strokes up and down. Just note any tender spots. Pulling now along the metatarsals on the front of the foot, so in between the bones, getting into that tissue. Now taking the fingers to the underside of the foot and spreading the top of the foot over the fingers. And you can work into the underside of the feet with the fingers as well. Taking hold of the toes as a unit and the heel and twisting lightly in two different directions. And one more stroke up from the tops of the feet, across the ankles, and up the legs somewhat. Take a moment to just notice how all of that felt. What do you notice is different? And let's go to the second side. So starting with compressing the foot. And then we'll take each little piggy, pull, join it back to the foot and give little circles. And then from here, we'll move on by bringing the thumbs to the indentations behind the toes. I'm going to turn so you can see better here. So working through the backs of the toes, enjoying that sensation of them spreading out, and then into the flesh of the underside of the foot with the thumbs. Here's an even stroke and then an alternating stroke. And now taking hold of the underside of the foot with the fingers and pressing into the tops of the feet with the thumbs. And over the tops of the feet into the space between the metatarsals. Taking hold of the toes as a unit and the heel and twisting lightly in 2 different directions. And then sweeping up from the ankle, halfway up the leg. And again, checking in now with both sides, both feet. You can play around with the toes a little, just playing a little toe piano. Let's transition now onto our backs. So when you come down to the floor, it is really helpful to be sitting up straight, take the chin to the chest, and then roll down 1 vertebra at a time to the floor. Feeling through the feet now that have been treated to a little massage so they can really spread out and enjoy the support of the floor. Hands on the belly to feel the rise and fall of the breath as you rest the back body into gravity. So we'll begin some exploration with pelvic tilts here. I think I end up doing 3 in one direction, so tilting down towards the feet, and then 3 in the other direction, tilting towards the head, and then combine them. You're welcome to do this in any way you choose. So just begin to tilt your pelvis without lifting it off the floor, so stay heavy and simply tilt it towards the feet and up towards the head. We're inhaling as we tilt towards the feet, and we're exhaling as we tilt towards the head. Whatever you find yourself doing in whatever pattern, just notice how the back, the lower back in particular, shifts with each tilt. So you'll feel an arch through the back as you tilt down towards the feet. And you'll feel a flattening of the spine as you tilt towards the head. Also note how the spine moves as a unit from tail to crown. Continue your exploration. Stay connected through the feet, relaxed through the upper body. Okay, let's walk the toes towards the hips, leaving the heels slightly off the ground. We're going to do some lifts of the pelvis into bridge. And I want you to use the anchoring of your feet and push into the toes to allow the hips to float up, lowering the heels back to the floor. And then you can either hold here or roll down your spine, taking the lower back as a unit. And repeat. As many times as you choose within the time frame I give. We're going to employ a strap here. So if you have a yoga belt, great. If you have some sort of scarf or tie, we're going to bind the upper thighs, not tight together, but about hip width apart. And we're going to repeat everything we've done, basically. So come onto the back again once you get your belt in position. And explore the arch and flatten movement. Tilting the pelvis towards the feet and then up towards the head. And just notice the difference as a result of having that strap supporting the legs. Notice whether the impulse is to push into the strap in an outward sort of rotation, or to squeeze the inner thighs together in an inward sort of rotation. Coming to the toes again to lift into a bridge. Just dropping the heels lightly back. Feeling free to hold or come up and down a few times into your bridge. Again, noticing how the strap is supporting. And then rest. We'll take now the legs up into the air. You'll want the knees about right over the hips, or perhaps closer to the chest now as we drop the knees to one side and then the other. Now notice I'm not coming all the way to the floor here. This is really about the core. And depending on how strong your core is, the closer you have your knees to your chest, the easier it will be. The further away the legs are, the more difficult. Keep your whole upper body on the floor. So we don't want the shoulders to come off. But of course there is the twisting through the back. And it can feel really nice to turn the head in the opposite direction that the legs are going. This can be quite an intense stretch. So please feel deeply into your own body and decide what's right for you. Now, we're going to tighten the strap so that the thighs are touching. And we'll do the same sequence again. So we'll start with the arch and curl. Notice how this feels now that the thighs are anchored together and stabilized. Explore at your own pace, tilting the pelvis towards the feet and then back up towards the head. And now we'll practice with the feet off the floor. Again, the knees either right over the hips or closer to the body as you lean the legs side to side. It can be really nice to stretch that opposite arm into the upper corner to feel that full line of cross fascia getting lengthened. And just note how that belt is stabilizing the sacrum. Coming now, we're going to sweep the arm overhead and fall all the way to one side. Then the arm comes back overhead as we come back onto the back, lifting the legs. Legs drop, arm overhead, we curl to the side. Arm comes and sweeps back overhead. The knees follow back onto the back. Back and forth here, we'll go from side to side. If this feels like too much for the arm and shoulder, then you can make it a much smaller movement, or keep your fingertips on that shoulder and just use the elbow to open, taking the legs up to the ceiling here, flexing the feet, making little circles on the sacrum. So we'll go one direction and then the other. You can make the circle slightly bigger as you go and just notice how the core is working and the relationship of the lower back to the floor. Switching directions. And then bending the knees, taking them to the chest in a tight little squeeze, rocking side to side if you wish. Let's remove the strap now from the legs and put it aside. Roll onto your side, come up, and we'll work with a side bridge. We'll put the elbow right under the shoulder of the supporting arm. The trunk and thighs will be in a line, so we don't want that 90-degree angle. We want to look down and see one plane with the feet behind the body. The supporting arm can be used to help you lift through the waist if you need to. If you're strong enough, then just lay your top arm alongside the body and lift through the waist. And lower. So lift and lower as you choose. You can either hold consistently or come up and down several times here in short little bursts. Now let's come to the floor, rest the head on the bottom arm. With the other hand, we're going to wrap around the head to the ear. Now from here, you're simply going to lift through the waist, the top waist, and then lower. So it's not going to be a really big movement, but you will feel that space under the bottom side waist, lifting and lowering. Go ahead and rest, and when you're ready, roll onto your other side. Making sure your elbow's right under your shoulder, that your upper body and thighs are in one plane. Using that top arm to lift through the waist, or your arm alongside your body, and then just pushing up through the hips and waist. Repeat that a few times. And then coming onto that bottom arm, wrapping your head with the top arm, and lifting through the underside waist, creating some space between the lower hip and the lower side ribs. Good, let's roll onto the back for a moment, just to feel the results of that. Turning to your side and coming up to a seated position just to set up our props for our first restorative pose. Placing the bolster horizontally across your mat, getting 2 more blocks, setting them up as you see here, and then resting on your knees for a moment, leaning back to stretch the tops of the feet and the ankles. And then coming back, you're going to place the bolster or come onto the bolster with the hips and pelvis on the bolster, the belly free. The first block resting at the bra strap line, flat against the body, so it might need to be tilted a little. And then the forehead block also tilted a little so that your forehead is flat and can release into the support. Rest here and breathe. And by all means, if something is not comfortable for you, you can adjust. You can remove one or more of the blocks, in which case you would simply bring your forearms together in front of your body and rest your head on your forearms. The legs may be more comfortable together or wide apart, so you can determine that for yourself as well. The most important thing is that you feel as though you can release the body into the supports. Okay, we'll release the forehead block now and place the hands right under the shoulders to push up into a cobra. Allow the pelvis to remain rested on the bolster. And as you relax here, see if you can release the shoulders down and also release any gripping through the buttocks and backs of legs. From here, we'll push back into a supported child's pose. You can turn the bolster vertically, take it between the thighs as you open your knees to accommodate, and hug either side of the bolster, turning the head to one side, resting your cheek upon it. We will remain here for about a minute. Breathe, relax. Now let's turn the cheek to the other side. Again, we'll rest for about 1 minute. And let's release that, coming back up, placing your bolster to the side, we won't need it again, and removing the blocks. Grab hold of a blanket, or you could use a strap, but a blanket is, I have to say, more fun. You're going to open the blanket and come onto your back, grabbing hold of each end of the blanket and putting your feet inside, and then holding each end of the blanket and straightening the legs up toward the ceiling. So basically, this is kind of like legs up the wall without a wall. The arms do have to work here because they are holding up the legs and supporting them. So if that becomes too much, you can take a break, or you can actually use a wall if you just want to relax. Breathe. You can, if you like, get a little playful here, taking the legs closer to the body. And then if you would like, you can also make some circles on the sacrum. It's kind of like making little scoops, as you'll see here, from side to side. Scoop and rock. Scoop and rock. And then release, and we will prepare for Shavasana. So I'm going to keep my feet covered in the blanket. That feels nice. And then your arms wherever is comfortable. And just note any sensations or residual feelings in the body as you surrender to the ground. Allowing thoughts to dissipate as soon as they arise. Following the breath. We'll prepare to come out of Shavasana by taking a long body stretch when you are ready. So tightening all the muscles around the bones as you reach, and then softening and coming back together as you turn to one side, rolling into a fetal position and resting for a moment. And then using that top arm, planting it onto the ground to push yourself up, the head coming up last. And we'll take a moment of meditation together. So coming to a comfortable seated position with your hands resting on your knees in Gyan Mudra, thumb and forefinger together. Sitting in stillness. Sitting in silence. Being in spaciousness. Feeling the radiance of your own heart. Thank you so much for joining me today. May your garden flourish.